Her human husband was gentle and powerless, until the twin suns of Varales slowly sank toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the glassy towers of Liara's city. From the sky, the sprawling metropolis shimmered like a web of stars, its towers twisting elegantly upward, held together by materials no human could have imagined. Liara, a scientist of high repute, walked along one of the wide sky bridges, her gaze distant. The city was alive with motion. Hovering vehicles, pedestrians of many species, and robotic assistants performing intricate tasks. Yet amidst all this alien sophistication, her thoughts kept returning to one figure. Her husband, Joran. Joran was human. He had been brought to Varales many years ago when humans were rare visitors from distant worlds. Unlike the aliens of Varales, humans were small, soft, and fragile. Their skin was sensitive to the planet's sunlight. Their strength, when compared to a Varalian adult, was barely noticeable. And yet, Liara had fallen in love with Joran, not for his strength, but for his gentleness. In her apartment, high above the bustling streets, Joran was seated at the dining table, carefully tending a small indoor garden. The plants were an assortment of human and alien flora, each chosen with care for the way they could thrive together. His hands were steady, his touch light, and his expression serene. There was something about the calm patience in his movements that always brought a sense of peace to Liara. "Joran," she called softly as she entered the room. "Dinner is ready." He looked up and smiled. "I just finished watering the orchids," he said. "They seemed thirsty." His voice was quiet, soothing, almost melodic to an alien ear. Liara could feel the tension of her long day melting away. She moved to stand beside him, watching as he adjusted a tiny leaf that had bent under the weight of its own growth. The aliens around them might see Joran's small, unassuming frame and think him powerless, but Liara knew better. His strength was not in muscle, but in patience, in care, and in thoughtfulness that could rival the sharpest minds of Varales. Their life together had been peaceful, even ordinary by interstellar standards. Joran would tend to the plants, prepare meals, and maintain their home. Liara, with her scientific research and projects, often worked long hours. But despite the difference in their abilities, they complemented each other. Where Liara was precise, analytical, and sometimes cold, Joran was warm, adaptable, and intuitive. That evening, as the twin moons rose over the city, Joran placed the last plant on the shelf and looked around their apartment. "You've been busy today," he said, noting the data pads and research instruments scattered across the room. Liara sighed and sank into the seat opposite him. "Yes, there's been a new development in the energy field simulations. If we can stabilize the flux patterns, it could change planetary power systems entirely." Her fingers traced patterns across the surface of her data pad as she spoke, her mind racing through equations and probabilities. Joran listened silently, nodding at intervals. "That's impressive," he said finally, "but don't forget to eat." Liara smiled. "I know you worry too much," he shrugged. "Someone has to." Even the aliens who visited their apartment often commented on Joran's gentle presence. A Varalian scientist once remarked, "He may not lift 10 tons, but he has a mind that observes, understands, and solves. Rare qualities indeed." The compliment had made Liara proud, but she knew it was also a reminder of how the rest of the universe underestimated humans. To most Varalians, humans were fragile, incapable of handling stress, and too soft for survival in dangerous situations. Yet Joran had proved otherwise time and time again. It was not strength in the traditional sense that defined him, but endurance. He could spend hours resolving small conflicts among alien workers, listening carefully to grievances, or calmly navigating tricky social situations. Where others might grow frustrated or angry, Joran remained patient. Liara often thought that this quiet power, the ability to remain calm when chaos surrounded him, was the true reason she had fallen in love. The peace of the evening, however, was a fragile one. Unknown to Joran, reports were filtering through the planetary networks of a distant threat. An alien fleet, far larger and more aggressive than anything Varales had ever seen, was moving across nearby star systems. Their intentions were unknown, but the movement of such a fleet always meant danger. Resources were to be harvested, planets conquered, and species subjugated. Joran, blissfully unaware, cleared the table while Liara prepared a simple human-style meal: roasted vegetables, a loaf of warm bread, and a pot of herb tea. The aroma filled their apartment, mingling with the scent of the plants Joran had tended. "Liara," he said as they ate, "do you ever worry that humans will never be taken seriously among the stars?" Liara paused. She considered the question carefully. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But humans have survived for thousands of years with nothing but ingenuity and cooperation. I think you have more strength than most of them realize." Joran smiled softly. "Strength comes in many forms," he said. "And perhaps one day the universe will see what humans are truly capable of." After dinner, they moved to the balcony overlooking the city. The lights of Varales stretched into the distance, reflecting off the glass towers and creating a river of luminescence. Joran leaned on the railing, quiet for a moment, lost in thought. Liara joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're not powerless," she whispered. "Even if others think so, I know the truth." Joran turned to her, his expression calm but filled with a quiet determination that surprised even her. "Sometimes it's not the power you hold, but how you use what you have." And with that simple truth, the peaceful night continued, unaware of the storms approaching from distant star systems. As the suns fully set, casting the city in the silvery light of the moons, Joran returned to his indoor garden, adjusting the leaves and checking the soil. His gentle nature, his patience, and his thoughtfulness were preparing him in ways no one yet realized. For in the universe, when strength was measured only in force, the quiet, unassuming humans often held the most unexpected power. Liara watched him from the doorway, a mix of admiration and concern in her eyes. Her human husband seemed so ordinary, so gentle. Yet she felt a stirring in her heart that told her the universe had not seen the last of Joran. One day that quiet strength would shine in ways that could change worlds. And that day would come sooner than anyone expected. The next morning, Varales awoke under a pale violet sky. The twin suns had not yet risen, and the city's towers glimmered faintly in the early light. Liara's laboratory hummed with activity as scientists prepared for another day of research, unaware of the shadow gathering beyond the planet's orbit. Joran, as usual, moved quietly through their apartment. He tended his indoor garden, checking the soil moisture and trimming leaves with care. His hands were steady, his movements gentle. For him, it was just another day, a routine that brought peace and order to a world that was often unpredictable. But the calm was about to break. In the planetary control center, alarms began to blare, a sound so foreign that even Liara had to stop in her tracks. Red lights flashed across the room, illuminating anxious faces. Large screens displayed images of a massive fleet of warships moving rapidly through space toward Varales. The ships were sleek, angular, and clearly built for destruction. Reports came in. The fleet had already destroyed smaller colonies along their path, leaving ruin in their wake. The city's leaders scrambled to respond. Liara, working as a consultant for planetary defense, was immediately summoned to the command room. She moved quickly, her mind racing through calculations, strategies, and defenses. Joran followed her, carrying a small tray of tea. He had heard the alarms and sensed the tension in the city. "Liara," he said gently, "is everything okay?" She looked at him, her face tight with worry. A hostile fleet is heading toward Varales. We need to prepare defenses immediately." Joran's brow furrowed. He was not trained for combat. He did not carry weapons, nor did he have armor to protect him from the alien fleet's attacks. Yet he did not panic. Instead, he took a deep breath and looked around the room. "Let's think," he said calmly. "Where are the weaknesses? What can be done that the others might not see?" Liara blinked at him. The room was full of highly trained Varalian military officers and scientists, all experts in combat and strategy. Yet here was her human husband, gentle and unarmed, calmly asking the right questions. "Sir," a Varalian officer said, "we have tried every standard tactic. They are faster and stronger than anything we have faced." Joran nodded thoughtfully. "Then maybe we need to do something unexpected, something they won't anticipate." Liara watched him, a mixture of admiration and concern washing over her. Humans were rarely involved in battle planning, yet Joran had a mind capable of seeing solutions others could not. His gentleness was not weakness, it was clarity in the midst of chaos. The first attack came within hours. The alien fleet approached the planet's outer defense perimeter, firing energy pulses that could shatter towers and melt steel. Alarms screamed throughout the city, and civilians ran for shelter. Joran, however, did not move away. Instead, he began guiding citizens to safety, pointing out safe routes and calming panicked crowds. "Stay together," he instructed. "Keep your heads down, follow the light markers." Even the Varalian citizens, who were used to their own species' leadership, noticed the unusual calm in his voice. They began to follow his directions, moving with efficiency and coordination they had not shown before. Meanwhile, Liara worked frantically in the control room, coordinating the city's defense systems. Shields flared to life, energy cannons powered up, and robotic defense units moved into position. Yet, despite all their advanced technology, the fleet's assault was relentless. They were fast, precise, and adaptable, everything the city's defenses were not. "Joran," Liara said urgently, "you should stay inside. This is too dangerous." He shook his head. "I can't just sit and wait. People need help, and maybe I can find a way to slow them down." Liara bit her lip but did not argue further. She knew that when Joran set his mind to something, he would find a way, even without weapons or armor. He moved through the streets with calm determination, helping civilians navigate debris and guiding emergency teams to critical locations. As he moved, he noticed small patterns in the enemy attacks, tiny gaps in their formations, predictable movements of their drones, and areas where the city's shields could be manipulated to create safe corridors. Joran shared his observations with the command center via a communication link. "If you redirect the energy shields slightly," he suggested, "we can create a safe path through the outer districts. Also, some of their drones move slower near gravitational anomalies. We can use that to slow them down." The officers were skeptical. "That's risky," one said. "Riskier than doing nothing," Joran replied. His calm logic left no room for argument. Reluctantly, the commanders followed his instructions. The results were immediate. Citizens moved safely through the shielded corridors, avoiding the brunt of the attack. Enemy drones became disoriented near the gravitational anomalies, giving the defense units a chance to disable them. Joran's human intuition, his ability to think differently from the technologically superior Varalians, was saving lives. Hours passed, and the fleet continued its assault. Liara stayed by Joran's side whenever she could, assisting with her knowledge of energy systems. She marveled at how he remained calm under pressure, how his mind found solutions when panic would have overtaken anyone else. At one point, a group of smaller warships broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for the residential districts. The Varalian military panicked, unsure how to stop them in time. Joran, however, noticed the trajectory of the ships and a pattern in the timing of their energy pulses. "Liara," he said, pointing at the holographic map, "if we activate the city's magnetic pulse generators at exactly this moment, it will overload their systems for a few seconds. That should give us time to redirect them away from the homes." Liara hesitated. Magnetic pulses were experimental and dangerous. A miscalculation could damage the city systems. "We don't have a choice," Joran said firmly. "We need those few seconds to protect the civilians." With a deep breath, Liara authorized the pulse. The generators hummed, building energy, and then released a burst that struck the enemy ships. Electronics sparked and blinked. The small warships veered off course, missing the residential areas entirely. The city had survived another direct attack, thanks to the quiet, observant mind of a human. Liara realized she had underestimated just how capable Joran could be in a crisis. His gentleness, his patience, and his ability to see patterns others missed had become the key to survival. As night fell, the fleet finally retreated temporarily, regrouping in the outer orbit. The city was battered, but the people were alive. Emergency teams worked through the streets, and Joran moved among them, helping coordinate the efforts and keeping spirits high. Liara finally found a moment to pull him aside. "Joran, you were incredible today." He shook his head gently. "I only did what I could. The city has defenses and the people helped themselves. I just noticed things others didn't." Liara felt a mix of pride and worry. The attacks were only the beginning. The alien fleet was far larger than they had realized, and their intent was not merely to test defenses. They wanted to conquer. Joran had helped protect the city this time, but what about the next? As they watched the twin moons rise over the damaged skyline, Liara realized that the man she had thought powerless had quietly become the heart of the city's defense. His ingenuity, patience, and courage had kept thousands alive. And she began to understand a truth she had suspected but never fully grasped. Humans were underestimated at their own peril. Joran, unaware of the weight of his growing reputation, returned to the streets. To him, it was simply the right thing to do. Help where he could, think where others panicked, and protect life whenever possible. But for Liara and the people of Varales, it was clear that this gentle human, so unassuming in appearance, might just be their greatest hope. And far beyond the planet, the alien fleet observed the resistance. The unpredictability of the human had not gone unnoticed. A new variable had entered the battlefield, and it would change the way the invaders approached the planet. The war was only beginning, and in the shadows of uncertainty, a quiet human mind was already proving that strength was not only measured in power, but in courage, creativity, and calm resolve. The following morning, Varales was quiet, but the city carried the weight of the previous day's attack. Smoke still rose from broken buildings, and repair crews moved through the streets, restoring power lines and clearing debris. Citizens whispered about the human who had guided them safely through the chaos. Joran moved among them, checking on people, helping with simple tasks, and quietly noticing details others overlooked. Liara met him at the laboratory, her expression serious but tinged with curiosity. "Joran, I need you with me today. There's something I want to show you." It could be important for the defense of the city. He raised an eyebrow. "Important how? Another machine that shoots lightning?" She smiled faintly. "Not exactly." The two of them traveled to an old research facility on the outskirts of the city. The building had been abandoned for decades, left over from an era when Varales explored distant star systems. Its walls were cracked, and the entrance was half collapsed, but inside, a faint glow pulsed from the heart of the laboratory. Liara led Joran down the long hallway, past dusty equipment and broken control panels. At the center of the lab was a sealed chamber, protected by alien technology that had resisted time and decay. The glow came from a small device inside, a metallic sphere, smooth and unmarked, resting on a pedestal. "This," Liara said, her voice low with awe, "is an artifact from a human exploration team that visited this region thousands of years ago. It was dormant for centuries, but something about the attacks yesterday it activated." Joran stepped closer, examining the sphere. It was smaller than his hand, yet it radiated warmth and energy. "What does it do?" he asked. Liara shook her head. "We're not entirely sure. Ancient records suggest it's a survival and defense device. It responds to human thought, intuition, and creativity. Unlike our technology, which relies on energy and strength, this device adapts to the user's mind." Joran reached out hesitantly. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, the sphere pulsed brighter. Lines of light traced patterns across his skin, warm but gentle. He felt aware, his senses sharpened. He could sense small details in the room, the faint hum of power in the walls, the delicate movement of air currents, even the tiny flaws in the pedestal that held the sphere. "It's like it's alive," he whispered. "Yes," Liara said. "It responds to the mind, to humans." "And Joran, it seems to recognize you." He pulled back slightly, uncertain. "But why me? I'm ordinary, I'm gentle, I don't have strength or weapons, I'm not like the Varalians." Liara placed a hand on his shoulder. "That's exactly why. The device doesn't need brute strength. It needs creativity, patience, and calm judgment, all things you have in abundance." Joran studied the sphere, feeling a strange energy coursing through him. Slowly, the lines of light formed a pattern across his hand, a map almost like a guide. He could feel a connection to the environment, a sense of where energy flowed, where weaknesses might exist, and how the city could be protected. This could help us," he said quietly. "It could give us an edge against the fleet." Liara nodded. "Exactly, but it's untested. We don't know the limits, or what it will ask of you." For the next several hours, Joran experimented with the sphere. He discovered that his thoughts could manipulate energy fields in the room. Small machines powered on as he focused. Lights brightened and holographic screens responded to his mental commands. Every action required concentration and calm. If he became frustrated or fearful, the device dimmed and stopped responding. "It's like it trusts you," Liara observed. "It won't let fear or anger control it, only clear thought." Joran spent the rest of the day learning, guided by Liara. She taught him about the energy flows of the city's systems, while he practiced using the sphere to sense weaknesses and strengths in the surrounding environment. By the end of the day, he could detect areas of the city where energy was low, predict structural weaknesses, and even sense the approach of drones before they appeared on scanners. When night fell, the city was quiet once more. Joran stood on a balcony, the sphere in his hand glowing softly. Liara joined him. "Do you feel different?" she asked. He nodded. "I feel sharper, I can see more, notice more, but it's not just power, it's understanding, I can't explain it fully. It's like the city is speaking to me and I just listen." Liara's eyes widened. "This is incredible. With this, we might finally have a real chance against the fleet, not just defending but striking strategically." Joran smiled faintly, but a flicker of worry crossed his face. "I'm still just human. I can't fight like your soldiers and I can't control the fleet, but maybe I can help in a different way." The following morning, they tested the sphere in a controlled exercise. Small drones, similar to those used by the invading fleet, were deployed near the city. Joran focused on the sphere, visualizing energy paths and imagining ways to redirect the drones. Slowly, the drones changed course, avoiding obstacles and colliding harmlessly with barriers. Liara watched in amazement. "You're doing it, you're controlling them not with force but with thought." Joran exhaled, a mix of relief and excitement on his face. "It's subtle, not like shooting lasers or flying ships, but it works. If I can do this on a small scale, maybe I can scale it up." Over the next days, Joran continued to train, learning to manipulate the device more efficiently. He discovered he could sense weaknesses in enemy designs, predict attack patterns, and even influence the trajectory of small energy weapons. His gentle mind, once considered a weakness, was now a weapon of strategy and foresight. Liara noticed a change in him. It wasn't just the abilities the sphere granted, it was the confidence he carried. The calm, observant human she had always admired now radiated a quiet determination. He walked taller, spoke with authority, and even smiled more often, as if he understood something profound that others had not. Yet, despite the excitement, the threat of the fleet loomed. Sensors detected the enemy gathering in orbit once more. The alien warships were larger, more organized, and better equipped than before. Veralis would not survive another direct assault without a decisive strategy. Joran and Liara worked together late into the night. Using the sphere, Joran mapped out the fleet's potential approach routes and calculated where the city's defenses could be most effective. He noticed patterns in the enemy formations, subtle movements that suggested the aliens were adapting their tactics. His human intuition allowed him to anticipate these changes in a way no Varalian technology could. Finally, Joran turned to Liara, a determined gleam in his eyes. "I think I understand now. I can't fight them physically, but I can guide our defenses, predict their moves, and give the city a chance to survive. We can't just react anymore, we can plan. We can outthink them." Liara's chest swelled with pride. "You've always been able to outthink, Joran. Now you just have the tools to make a real difference." For the first time, Joran felt a sense of purpose beyond mere survival. He understood that humans were underestimated not because they lacked strength, but because they approached problems differently. While the Varalians relied on force, humans relied on creativity, observation, and adaptation. And in that difference lay the true power of humanity. As dawn broke over Veralis, Joran stood on the balcony, the sphere glowing faintly in his hand. The city below was battered but alive, and he knew that the coming battle would be unlike any the planet had faced. The alien fleet was still out there, powerful and relentless. But with the sphere, and with his mind focused on strategy and understanding, Joran felt ready. Liara joined him silently, her hand resting on his shoulder. "The fleet doesn't know it yet," she said softly, "but we have something they can't predict. You." Joran looked at her and smiled. "I'm just a human," he said, "but maybe humans aren't as powerless as they think." And with that, the first real hope of turning the tide against the invaders began to take shape. A quiet, gentle human, armed with nothing but his mind and an ancient human device, ready to protect a world that had doubted his kind for too long. The morning sun rose over Veralis, casting golden light across the repaired city. The twin moons had disappeared from the sky hours ago, and for a brief moment it seemed as though peace had returned. Yet, the sensors in the command center continued to flash warnings. The alien fleet had regrouped in orbit, larger and more organized than before. Their intent was clear. This time they would not merely test defenses, they would conquer. Joran stood at the balcony of their apartment, the ancient sphere glowing faintly in his hand. He had spent countless hours training, learning to sense energy flows, predict movement, and manipulate small machines remotely. His mind had grown sharper, more alert, more capable of analyzing patterns others would overlook. But this was different. The city itself now depended on his insight, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. Liara joined him silently. "Joran," she said softly, "they're coming, soon." He nodded. "I know, but we're ready in a way they won't expect." Not with brute force, but with strategy. The city's defense systems had been realigned according to his plans. Energy shields shifted in unusual patterns, confusing enemy sensors. Robotic defense units moved unpredictably, responding to routes Joran had plotted in his mind. The Varalian commanders, initially skeptical of a human leading their tactical decisions, now deferred to him, trusting his intuition over years of conventional training. At first light, the alien fleet advanced. Thousands of warships gleamed in the void, engines glowing, energy weapons primed. The city braced itself as massive pulses of energy lit up the sky, and Joran's heart beat steadily. "Focus," he whispered, gripping the sphere. "Predict, observe, respond." The first wave of ships fired. Energy pulses streaked across the sky, striking defensive towers. Many towers shook but held firm, thanks to the adjustments Joran had made. Small groups of drones approached, attempting to land on rooftops and breach the city's perimeter. The Varalian soldiers hesitated, unsure how to intercept them. Joran's eyes narrowed. He extended his hand, focusing on the patterns of the drones. Through the sphere, he could sense the flow of energy guiding them, the tiny imbalances in their flight paths. With a subtle motion, he redirected the energy currents around the city. The drones slowed, veered off course, and collided harmlessly with each other. Soldiers and civilians alike stared in awe at the human's calm, commanding presence. Liara monitored the larger fleet from the command center. "Joran, they're adapting," she shouted over the comms. "Their ships are changing formations, trying to bypass the shields." He remained calm. "Let them watch for the patterns. Their strength is in numbers, but numbers are predictable." He observed the subtle shifts in the fleet's movements. Unlike the Varalian commanders, who relied on brute strength and direct confrontation, Joran noticed weaknesses. Some ships were faster but less armored. Others had energy pulses that could overload if disrupted. Small misalignments in formation appeared repeatedly, tiny errors caused by the fleet's reliance on conventional tactics. "Liara," he said, "will use their own strength against them. The faster ships will be drawn into traps we set with the shields. The energy pulses can be redirected to confuse their sensors. If we act precisely, we can split their forces." Liara nodded, her fingers flying across the control panels to implement his strategy. The city's defenses moved in harmony with Joran's commands, as if responding to the rhythm of his mind. Hours passed. The sky above the city was alive with movement, streaks of energy, spinning drones, and massive warships maneuvering in tight formations. The alien fleet had underestimated the city, and now they were being forced into positions they had not calculated. Joran's focus never wavered. His gentle nature allowed him to remain calm, even as explosions shook nearby buildings. He guided defenses, adjusted energy flows, and anticipated enemy moves. Each successful maneuver brought a small victory: a drone captured, a ship misdirected, a shield preserved. The city's casualties were minimal compared to the first attack, and morale among soldiers and citizens soared. By midday, the tide of battle had begun to turn. The alien fleet, frustrated and confused, attempted to retreat, but Joran's strategies anticipated every move. The sphere allowed him to sense the ships' trajectories before they were visible on scanners, enabling precise countermeasures. He coordinated energy pulses, redirected drones, and even influenced the flight paths of larger vessels. Liara watched him, astonished. "He's controlling the battlefield," she whispered, "not with weapons but with his mind, with strategy." Even the Varalian commanders were impressed, their earlier doubts replaced by admiration. One officer muttered, "I've never seen a human do this. Incredible." But Joran remained focused, aware that the battle was far from over. The alien fleet was clever and adaptive. If he faltered for even a moment, the city could still fall. As the afternoon sun reached its peak, the aliens made their final assault. A massive warship broke formation and fired a concentrated energy blast directly at the central city tower, the heart of the defense network. The shield flickered under the immense pressure, and soldiers braced for impact. Joran's mind raced. He focused on the energy patterns, visualizing how to redirect the blast. With a subtle gesture, he guided the energy currents, causing the attack to disperse harmlessly into the sky. The crowd watching from safe zones erupted in cheers. "Joran!" Liara shouted. "You did it." He shook his head slightly, his eyes scanning the battlefield. "Not done yet. Keep monitoring the fleet. They'll try one more trick." Sure enough, the alien warships regrouped for a final coordinated strike. They launched multiple drones simultaneously, targeting vital energy junctions throughout the city. The Varalian soldiers struggled to intercept them all, but Joran's sphere allowed him to sense the drones' weak points and manipulate their paths. One by one, the drones were redirected or neutralized, colliding safely away from critical infrastructure. With each successful maneuver, Joran's confidence grew. He realized something profound. The gentle nature he had once thought of as weakness, his patience, observation, and empathy, was the key to his strength. By understanding patterns, anticipating actions, and remaining calm, he could achieve what no brute force could accomplish. Finally, the alien fleet began to retreat. Their ships moved away from Varales, battered, confused, and wary of the unpredictable human who had turned their attack into a disaster. The city was still standing, largely intact, and its people were alive. The streets filled with cheers as citizens and soldiers alike celebrated a victory they had not thought possible. Liara found Joran in the command center, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Joran! You saved the city!" He shook his head, a humble smile on his face. "I didn't do it alone. The city's systems, the soldiers, the people, they all worked together. I just guided them." But Liara knew the truth. Joran had been more than a guide. He had been the heart of the defense, the quiet mind that saw what others could not. Humanity, gentle and underestimated, had proven its value once again. As night fell over the city, the people of Varales gathered to celebrate. Banners waved, music filled the streets, and for the first time, humans were not just visitors. They were heroes. Joran stood beside Liara, looking at the smiling faces of those he had protected. He felt a quiet pride, not in power, but in purpose. Liara leaned close. "You've changed, Joran. The fleet didn't see it coming, and neither did anyone else. You're extraordinary." He smiled softly. "I'm still just a human, but maybe humans have more power than anyone gives them credit for. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in force. It's in understanding, patience, and creativity." And as the city celebrated, Joran understood that this was only the beginning. The alien fleet would return, stronger and more determined, but now he had a tool, a mind, and a strategy that could protect his home. The gentle human had become the unexpected shield of Varales. For the first time, the people of the planet, and perhaps even the universe, would see that true strength could come in the most unassuming form. And Joran, the gentle human, was ready to face whatever came next. The morning sky over Varales was a deep shade of violet, streaked with the first hints of the twin suns rising over the horizon. The city was quiet but tense. Rumors spread quickly. The alien fleet, enraged by their previous defeat, was returning. This time they were larger, more organized, and determined to conquer. The people of Varales knew that this battle would decide the fate of their planet. Joran stood on the balcony of their apartment, the ancient human sphere glowing softly in his hands. His calm demeanor masked the storm of thought running through his mind. He had learned to read the battlefield, predict enemy movements, and manipulate the flow of energy. But this next attack would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. Liara joined him silently. "They're coming," she said, her voice steady but tinged with worry. "This time it's not just drones or smaller warships. They're bringing their capital ships." "Entire fleets of heavily armored vessels." Joran nodded. "Then we have to think differently. Force alone won't win this. We need strategy, precision, and speed." Together, they moved to the command center, where Varalian officers were preparing defenses. The atmosphere was tense, filled with anticipation and fear. Many of the commanders had begun to respect Joran, but they still doubted whether a single human, gentle and unarmed, could truly guide the city through such overwhelming odds. Joran took a deep breath, feeling the sphere respond to his presence. The device pulsed with energy, connecting his mind to the city's systems and the flow of energy around him. He could sense the structures, the shield grids, and even the smallest fluctuations in power. Beyond the city, he could feel the approaching fleet, thousands of ships, each with predictable patterns and exploitable weaknesses. "Liara," he said quietly, "I can guide the defenses, but we'll need everyone to act exactly as I direct. Timing is everything." "One mistake and the city could fall," she nodded. "We'll follow your lead." As the first wave of ships appeared over the horizon, Joran raised his hand and the sphere glowed brighter. He focused on the patterns of the fleet, sensing the flow of their movements like currents in a river. Each ship had a rhythm, a predictable pulse that could be anticipated and manipulated. The alien fleet had relied on brute force before, but they had not accounted for human intuition. Joran's mind worked like clockwork. He redirected energy pulses to confuse enemy sensors, adjusted shield frequencies to create safe paths through the city, and guided robotic defense units to intercept attacks with precision. Drones and smaller ships collided harmlessly or were redirected into containment fields. Every move was calculated, every response timed perfectly. Liara watched, her breath caught in her throat. He's controlling the battlefield, not with weapons but with thought. Hours passed, and the intensity of the battle increased. The alien fleet had learned from their previous defeat. They adapted their formations, launched more powerful energy blasts, and targeted key defense points. But Joran was always one step ahead. He sensed weaknesses in their strategy, adjusted defenses, and exploited errors that the enemy didn't even realize they were making. At one point, a massive capital ship broke formation, aiming a concentrated energy beam directly at the city's main energy hub. Shields flickered under the force and alarms blared. Soldiers braced for impact, expecting catastrophic damage. Joran's eyes narrowed. He focused all his energy on the sphere, visualizing the flow of the attack and the paths of the energy currents. Slowly, he redirected the beam, splitting it harmlessly into multiple arcs that dispersed into the sky. The city's energy hub remained intact. The people of Varalis watched from safe zones, their fear turning into astonishment and hope. The gentle human once thought powerless had saved their city once again. Children pointed at him, whispering excitedly, while elders nodded in respect. Humans were no longer just visitors, they were heroes, but the battle was far from over. The alien fleet regrouped for a final assault, determined to crush the city once and for all. This time they coordinated their attacks with precision, targeting multiple points simultaneously. Even the Varalian commanders began to panic. Joran remained calm. "We will divide and conquer," he said, addressing Liara and the officers. "Focus on their predictable strengths, exploit their patterns. We can turn their power against them." He used the sphere to map the fleet's formation, identifying the weakest points. Smaller ships could be manipulated into collisions, energy blasts redirected, and larger vessels disrupted by precise shield adjustments. Every calculation relied on patience, observation, and creativity, the very qualities humans had been underestimated for. As the alien fleet approached, Joran's strategy unfolded like a well-rehearsed dance. Drones collided with each other, massive warships misfired due to redirected energy pulses, and shielded corridors guided enemy fire harmlessly into open space. The Varalian soldiers moved with newfound confidence, following his guidance exactly. Liara watched in awe. "It's incredible. He's not just surviving the attack, he's controlling it, predicting it." By midday, the tide had fully turned. The alien fleet, battered and confused, began to retreat. Their capital ships, unable to adjust to the humans' unpredictable strategies, faltered under the precise countermeasures. Joran's calm mind had outthought brute force, patience had outlasted aggression, and ingenuity had overcome strength. Finally, the fleet vanished into the distance, leaving Varalis victorious. The city was battered but standing, its people alive and inspired. Citizens poured into the streets, cheering and celebrating their unlikely hero. Banners flew, music filled the air, and for the first time, humans were recognized as more than fragile beings. They were vital, capable, and powerful in ways the universe had never expected. Liara found Joran in the command center, still focused on monitoring energy flows even as the alarms quieted. She approached, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Joran. You saved Varalis." He shook his head, smiling faintly. "We saved it together." The people, the soldiers, the city's systems, they all played a part. I just guided what I could see. She placed a hand on his shoulder. It doesn't matter, you were the difference. Your calm, your insight, your patience. They saved thousands of lives. Humanity has proven itself. Joran looked out over the city, the sun rising fully now, casting light across the repaired towers and streets. He felt a quiet satisfaction, not in power or recognition, but in purpose. He had done what no one expected. He had shown that humans, gentle and seemingly powerless, could change the course of events through observation, strategy, and understanding. News of Varali's victory spread quickly to neighboring planets. Aliens who had previously underestimated humans began to reconsider their assumptions. Scientists, soldiers, and leaders alike marveled at the impact of a single human guiding an entire city through overwhelming odds. Humanity had once again proven that it could face impossible challenges and prevail. That evening, Joran and Liara stood on their balcony, watching the city celebrate below. The people danced, laughed, and sang, grateful for the protection that had come from the most unlikely source. Liara turned to him, her voice soft but filled with emotion. "You've changed the way the universe will see humans. You've shown them that strength isn't only in force. It's in patience, creativity, and courage." Joran smiled, feeling a sense of peace he had never known. "I'm still just a human," he said. "But maybe humans are meant to be more than anyone expects. We survive, we adapt, and we find ways to protect each other." "That's our strength." Liara leaned close. "And your strength has changed the world, the city, the people. They will never forget today." As night fell, the twin moons rose over Varali's once more. Joran held the glowing sphere in his hands, feeling the pulse of energy and life around him. The alien fleet was gone, at least for now, but the lesson had been clear. Underestimated humans could rise, think, and act in ways no one else could. They were gentle, patient, and clever, and in that combination lay a power that no weapon could match. The city slept peacefully, the threat averted, and the people safe. Liara rested her head on Joran's shoulder, proud and awed by the human beside her. The universe had learned a truth that could not be ignored. Humanity, quiet and unassuming, was a force of resilience, ingenuity, and courage. And Joran, once thought powerless, now stood as proof that true strength was not measured by muscle or weaponry, but by heart, mind, and the will to act when it mattered most. Humanity had prevailed.